Hello, this is Positive Vibes Enterprise. I am Tom Goodwin. This is Michelle Ronquillo.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back.
And the focus today has to do with images. And when it comes to the spiritual is sort of like has a different language. When you're in the spiritual realm, it doesn't deal with words. When a psychic has to interpret things. In other words, has to interpret impressions. So the idea that somebody's getting direct communication in the form of language, it doesn't really happen that way all the time. I've had direct language communication with my brother after he died, but that could have been a translation of images too. So it could go back to that. If you're real good at translating images, you can change into words very readily, especially if you know the person really well.
Right. Also, in the spiritual realm, trusting the gut of those images that are coming in is very important, because when you're locked into certain images and the labels of those images, you can get the translation all wrong. Because it is a very wide range of different images that might be coming in for the person, or in a reading, or even in just your daily life.
You could say that different people use different languages with the images they're using, because they have different images. They have taken on a certain mythology of images, and a lot of it has to do with the beliefs they have, and then they'll have the images to go with the beliefs, and then there'll be all these ideas or thoughts related to the images. So it can get very complicated. But the thing is, you have to have, to be able to have real good intuition, you have to have images that interface with reality really well, which means that they are images that do you good when it comes to dealing with reality. I mean, meaning that it gets complicated, because when you think of the spiritual, you think of it as being very non-material. But the spiritual has to interact with the material realm and prove its effectiveness there. It may have images, and it may be non-material in the way it functions, on the level it functions, but it only can prove itself or prove its value. It's like you have abstract ideas, and then you have to prove those ideas by how well they work in the physical plane. And even so, images are abstract, but they're not as abstract as you may think, because the images are related to the physical in a lot of ways, but they're an abstraction in the sense that they're a representation of things.
Yeah, also, in the projections of the images, you really have to understand that you have to balance what the symbol is representing on all sides. So in the spiritual, you look at all sides and you deep confirmate what you are seeing or feeling through that image, and it will give you a more logical base thought, instead of a delusional based thought of creation. Because in creation, there is delusional base of the creation patterns of what maybe your symbols or visuals or images are in your level of understanding. However, in the spiritual, when you open up your gut intuition, and you open up to the all sides of where that label is meaning, what is representing, what is it feeling, then you can get a more good, solid, logical view of the image.
And it's sort of like dreams have a lot to do with the spiritual. And I went into dream interpretation really heavy a while ago, and I'm number 9 still at Yahoo Answers in dream interpretation, Astro Goodwin. I'm still that. But I did that because I knew that dreams played a very strong role in that the dream world is very much related to the spiritual realm. It's very much connected to it. So if you want to learn about the spiritual, you have to learn about, you have to understand dreams, because you have to understand what's going on in that most inner level of yourself.
Right. And there again, we go back in the images that goes through trauma, Maybe somebody is got some nightmares going on in their dreams that is releasing the trauma of their inner spiritual child that needs to be released, needs to be understood, and it will come in images. It's going to come in the different ways that that person perceives life inside and out.
Well, trauma is going to you can't bring nightmares. You could just understand how that would work.
Right.
How if you have trauma in you, then it represents in dreams. You're going to have dreams that related to these fears and these things that you're afraid. Things you're afraid are going to happen to you. That what would be a nightmare to you? What is inside of you that you are really afraid might happen to you? And I always say that whatever you face in dreams, you deal with it like you would deal with things in real life and be effective at dealing with it. And that is that you face it and you fight to get a positive outcome, no matter how long it takes. And if you wake up fighting something trying to get a positive outcome, then it's a good thing.
Yeah, and also understanding why you're using the images, maybe a tool, anything that you put energy and belief into is going to have some kind of energy power for you. So you need to watch what you're doing as far as what you're putting your energies into. Sometimes the energies represent a negative perception that society has labeled on that image. So you have to be careful of the energies also coming out of that. But when you know who you are and you're using the images and the tools for a positive way, it really doesn't matter, like, once again, what anyone else thinks, because you're walking and beating to your own drum.
And your images are going to have a lot to do with what motivates you, what is going to determine your course in life. And there's a lot of people, there are some people that have really strong psychological problems out there, and they'll have really distorted images.
Right.
And those images will lead them to do terrible crimes and terrible actions in this world. So you have to have the right images, and the images and it's very important to have images that work well in the reality we have, because obviously the people that commit crimes and do really terrible things don't have the right images that are good for their well-being or their own reality, because they're going to end up in prison and they're going to end up in terrible situations. And then a lot of times when people have the wrong images or whatever, they're easily gotten into addictions of different type, like drugs. Because drugs have these kind of blissful states, or these states that are not the most productive states when it comes to getting results in this reality. They feel good, but they're not the type that help you to bear down and get real good results. Yeah. So people have images and beliefs related to them that see things think things should be really rosy, or they have a naive way of looking at things, then you could see how they could easily get caught up in the type of what a drug would do to them, the state a drug would put you in. It would sort of like put you in a distorted state, because our brain, it has all these chemicals, it has all these hormones and all. They're meant to be in a certain balance.
That's right.
And if you get certain hormones or whatever exaggerated because of drugs, then you're going to go in a distorted direction. And that distortion, in a distorted state of well-being or whatever, that has nothing to do with the reality you exist in, and that's going to lead you to disaster.
Yeah, exactly. And then also, one thing that I do tell people: do not get locked in your belief system. Sometimes when we're talking about images or things that are coming in from the spiritual that is trying to help you change your patterns, change your views, maybe change your direction, you need to have that logical base understanding plugged into any unknown image or emotion or dreams that's coming in. Be sure to, always trust your gut, but look for the logical confirmations of things, and then feel if it feels right to you, and go with those logical types of patterns instead of a delusional state of creation or assuming you think you know, and then get locked into some crazy path that has nothing to do with what you're trying to heal and what the dreams and the images are showing you.
You don't want to get intoxicated by images.
That's right.
And that's where you'll find that there are religions and so forth and spiritual organizations that tend to be intoxicating the way they present themselves. They present intoxicating. They what do you call it? They tend that love energy. They try to they just what's the word? They throw love at you really strong. It's sort of like they try to overwhelm you with their love at the beginning to pull you in. And that's a pattern that's actually very similar to an abusive pattern that you're going to get when you get into an abusive relationship. Because an abusive person or an abusive spiritual organization is not going to see itself as something that is going to be enticing if it's just presented in a straightforward fashion. They have to have a deceit involved in it. So therefore, they're going to sort of like paint an image that is a lot better because they know if they paint the image that is realistic, it wouldn't be attractive. So they just sort of like dress everything up a lot. So they try to present an intoxicating quality to it,
right,
to draw you in. And if you have a whole bunch of people believing something that is delusional, the whole group can have an intoxicating type energy because they're trying, but they're not going to be a group that does very well when it comes to doing constructive things to make this world a better place and stuff. In other words, they're going to be in some kind of fantasy they're building up. And as long as they get donations from people that like the fantasy, they can keep going, but it's not like they're doing anything in the real world to contribute to straighten things out. And the whole thing that my spiritual ideology is based on, it's contributing to change this world and make it a better one. And you look at this world and all the problems it has, you better believe it needs to be changed and it needs to be improved spiritually. And I keep, I watch all these videos, and one thing about a lot of these religions, we're going to save the world, we're going to, and they all have the idea they're going to save the world. And of course, I'm trying to do my own part to make the world a better place. So you could say I'm caught up in it too, but there's a difference in that I'm not into something crazy. I'm into getting the scientists together and getting all the realistic people and all the practical people together and doing the work to transform the world. I'm not going to do, all of a sudden get in a spiritual state and project it on the world and the world's going to change. I am going to help people to become more practical so that they'll do the work like the Einsteins or the Galileos or the different people have done in the past.
Yes,
Edison and what is it? George Washington Carver. There were all kinds of fantastic people that have done things to contribute to this world. But both of them have been technological type advances. I haven't seen an awful lot of spiritual advances, and I guess that's what really motivates me, because I see a really spiritually backward planet that has images of God or whatever that are not practical. They don't get people to really focus on this world and to feel empowered, that we can make a difference, that we're powerful spirits. We're not some baby-like spirit. We're powerful spirits that can make a difference in this world, and we're the reason this world exists. You have to get to that point, that the world exists to serve us. But we have to be able to do our part and contribute to making it work well. It's not to serve us so that we can make a mess of it and destroy everything. It's to serve us so that we can the healthier we make the world around us, the healthier we will be. If we exploit the world, we end up destroying ourselves.
That's right. By one example at a time, through you, by you, as you.
So I tend to talk about ourselves as being eternal spirits. And that's what I believe we are. We are individual eternal spirits that need a habitat, so we have one. But we're responsible to make the habitat work for us. Yes. We have to do the work. We don't get anything without doing
the hard work.
Achieving something and earning it. We have to earn it. That's one of the basic rules. You have to earn something in order to get it. You don't get it for no good reason. In other words, we have a reasonable, rational world that is based on sound principles, that you do the work, you get the result. You don't do the work, you get in trouble.
That's right.
So, and as I say, the images, now you think of images, you may think of an image of a tree or an image of a rock. Well, when you're dealing with the spiritual, you're not dealing with the image straightforward as a rock. The rock becomes a representation. That's what I have to make a difference. That's why the images are not, I think of the images as non-concrete images, that there are different type of images. Now, if you have a dream of a rock, that means that something of solidity, something of a strong foundation. It means based on how you tend to emotionally see that image, rather than the fact that it's a rock. If you see a tree, you're going to have certain emotional connections with what a tree represents, or what some abstract symbol represents, or whatever.
Right.
So there is a difference. Now if your symbols are more interface with reality, maybe the rock symbol will be more scientific in how you see the rock, but it still will be representing certain principles from a spiritual angle, in that rocks will represent something. You need solidity. The spirit needs something solid to hang on to be sure, something that's foundational. To the rock, so on the spiritual realm, it'll be looked a little bit differently. It'll be looked at the spiritual principle of the rock, not the more than anything. And that's where you have to see the difference. In dreams, you're not dealing with things in the same way as you do when you're awake.
Right.
You're dealing with them based on how your spirit utilizes the principle of what they represent, because they all have their own spiritual principle behind them.
That's right. And when you understand how you feel on a symbol or an image, you can get a more solid idea of what the messages are in the spiritual.
It's just so important that you don't just. There's these people that channel things, and they tend to think they can channel perfect information. But you see, when you understand that the language of images is not perfect, then you realize you have to interpret what you're picking up spiritually, and then it's not gonna be perfect. It's only gonna be good as you are at understanding what's going on, what you're picking up on. It's only as good as the medium. So there's a limitation to what a channel's going to get. And then you don't just take it. Actually, the channel, a lot of times, it's almost like they have some kind of split in their personality, and their subconscious part of their mind is not connected enough with their conscious mind, so they can do a split. And then they can act like, oh, this is perfect stuff coming through. When in actuality, what they should do is they should filter through their conscious mind in some way, so they can check it out.
Right.
And say, well, how good really is this? Is this really going to help people to do better in the real world? And then the other person, the person receiving the message from the channel, especially if the channel isn't filtering themselves, has to become the filter and say, is this spiritual message that's coming through of any value to helping people see the world in a better place, improve their ability to contribute to this world? Is this really a practical, valuable message coming through, or is this something that's intoxicating, that makes people feel good, but can lead them astray from actually facing the difficult problems that need to be handled in this world? With all the abuse and all the bad things that are happening, because humanity is not humane enough.
Yeah, for sure.
So the topic today has been images, and poetry is another thing that's involved. A lot of times, that's why the spiritual is poetry, because of images and stuff.
Yeah, and it goes into emotion, and it's powered by emotion. So
yeah, it's powered by emotions, and a lot of times songs and music and the arts are all very much related to the spiritual because they all deal with symbols.
It gives great images through that emotion.
And that's why you have to be careful, because that's where all the programming is happening. You have the TV channels and everything, and they're all programming you to see things a certain way.
That's right.
They're programming your appetite. They're programming your desires. They're making the country, the United States, very hedonistic, and they're making it more decadent because they're selling these products and they're not thinking about the rational results. So in other words, there are messages being sent out. Of course, they'll say images and invisible stuff and all kinds of stuff being sent out. That is not programming people very well spiritually, and it's hurting us.
Yes.
So it was good that I came up with that before I closed, because that's important.
And if you out there have thought of anything that you want to add, please add a little message.
We don't mind it. We're not perfect medium, channeling energy and saying we're perfect, we're wonderful. We don't, you just listen to us and you'll get everything perfect. No, we're not perfect. We just
go research for yourself.
We're just trying to get reasonable stuff out there that'll make a difference in this world. Because to me, it just makes sense that if we're strong and have our act together spiritually, to reflect in the physical environment that we exist in. Okay, so this has been Positive Vibes Enterprise. With the subject has been images. We appreciate you watching.
Yes, thank you, and subscribe, share,
and spread the word about us, because we aren't getting enough people watching us. And how can we get the message out if we don't get people watching? And anybody that helps us will send positive spiritual energy your way, and you can see whether it, how positive it really is.
Yeah, we challenge you.
Yeah, we challenge you to get it connected to the energy we have, and also to learn the techniques so you can become a creator of it on your own.
Yes, voice. We want to hear your voice.
Yeah.
Till next time.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.